Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast. Today's guest is a musician and podcaster from Bristol in the UK. His name is Jacob Waller. Welcome to the show, Jacob. How you doing?
Hey, hi. Thanks for having me. It's good
No,
to
it's a
be here.
pleasure. No, it's a pleasure to have you. Obviously, we were just talking off camera there how about our contact, Jen. So thank you for putting us in contact, Jen, for setting this up. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, I'm just going to jump straight into it.
hmm
Tell us a little bit about the music scene in Bristol. What's the situation there?
People ask me this, and I'm not even necessarily massively engaged with the music scene in Bristol.
Okay.
I don't know, to some extent, because I'm in a band and we play music live, obviously, and there's plenty of like jam nights and blues nights and of different genres. And I do or did pre-lockdown, and a few of them are starting to open up again. Semi-regularly go to those, but I mean more broadly, Bristol's more famous for types of music that I'm not personally really into, like different types of electronic
Mm.
genres that I don't really particularly listen to, um, and so I'm not necessarily massively engaged specifically with the Bristol music scene because I'm quite frankly just not cool enough for it because my band is kind of like Americana folky country,
Mm.
um, which if you ask me is pretty much the coolest of the genres, but I don't think that's a common opinion. So yeah, my band Between the Breaks, we play live whenever we can really. We've got a few things coming up. I think we're recording, if not an entire album, as much of an album as we can physically record. So yeah, that's what I do generally.
Are you working on going for it independently, or are you trying to get signed?
I don't know what we're trying. It's a strange one because it's a relatively, well, not a broad range of ages. I think the youngest is maybe 27. I'm 30, and then two of them are like 40, 41, and everybody except me has kids. So like the
Oh,
time
wow.
pressures, yeah, it's the kids thing. I think we're just trying to take it as far as we can, given that everyone has full-time jobs and kids, which probably means it won't get that far. But I think personally, I do like my podcast and I do video essays on YouTube and I do my own music. So I'm trying to do more with that kind of thing. And it's all music oriented. Um, so what we're trying to do with the band, I don't know, take it as far as we can. We're all friends, we all get along, and we write, well, we think we think we write good music. So yeah, just take it as far as we can, I guess.
It's interesting, like that, and I've spoken to quite a few different musicians on my show before. Many of them seem to be kind of leaning towards going for it independently, and
Mm.
obviously, you get more control over the situation and whatnot. But I guess what I wanted to say to you specifically is like, I don't think there are necessarily like rules in the same way that there were years ago. So do you know what I mean? And like, for example, if you take TikTok as an example, you can just take any random song and it can become huge overnight. Even songs that, maybe were already sort of well known, they can have like a resurgence or whatever, or
hmm
really obscure songs. Like I found a band the other day that was being used for a trend, and like they've only released two albums in the sort of early 2000s, and then they disappeared off the face
Mm.
of the planet, and it's like a really
Yeah.
really genuinely good band, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously, I'm so thankful to that app for introducing me to so many good musicians.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I agree. I mean, it is. I mean, you can just try to do anything and potentially make it work.
mm,
Whether you just stick to just making things on YouTube. I mean, there's still like kind of random element to it, like what kicks off. So, I think my approach so far with this online and YouTube thing is just see what sticks. Just start throwing everything at the wall. So I've done, I've done a podcast for a while now, a year and a half, I guess now. Not really getting anywhere. It's quite hard to promote a podcast. Whereas video essays take much more work. But once you've done them, they're a little bit easier, I find, to kind of get them out there and promote. Maybe it's just because I'm a little bit, maybe I'm better at it than I am at podcasts. Maybe I'm not charming enough to do the podcast by myself. Um, and then, since then I've done, so last night I was struck by a wave of inspiration, and I just got this video of this YouTuber I watch who does like cryptocurrency things, and I just kind of remixed him into like a song, and I just gave that a go. Again, it's just trying anything, and it's for my videos, it's doing um, against the relatively low baseline of my other videos, it seems to be doing well. So I'm just kind of trying a bunch of things. As I'm sure you're probably, I've seen your stuff. It's just, try a bunch of things, do it, well, and then see what actually works. Because this whole like viral thing is just, there's the random element to it, isn't there?
Well, I got to say, for me personally, I have a different philosophy. Like, I don't really subscribe to the whole, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks kind of ethos. Because for me, everything that you see me doing online, I genuinely am passionate about and want to do. And I don't.
Yeah, me too.
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really care to that much if something specific comes off. Well, okay, I should reword what I'm trying to say. Obviously, it's great if things do well, but I'm not going to just do only that thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, there have been people that have commented like, oh, why don't you do more of this stuff? Or like, it's like, well, I don't want to just be put into a box and only be allowed to do that thing. That for me is the most creatively stifling, frustrating thing of all time. And I don't really understand how people can I mean, I get it if you're like really specifically passionate about just one thing in life, but no one is. Everyone has different passions.
Yeah.
But like for everyone seems to be into this mindset of like, I am this, I am musician, I am office guy, I whatever. Like, you just, this is me, and that's it. And it's just like, screw that. I don't know. I don't like that. But
no, I don't think that's necessarily a million miles away from what I'm saying. Because I guess I'm just saying is, look, different things work to different extents, and different things are promotable or difficult to promote or easy to promote in different ways. So, what are all the different formats? There's like Reddit, there's YouTube Shorts, there's podcasts. Even on YouTube, there's, video essays versus like podcasts versus just like, I don't know, cover versions. And it's just like, at the end of the day, I legitimately enjoy all of it. But lately, I've just kind of massively reduced the amount of podcast stuff I'm doing because it's just, if it's that much effort for really quite a small return compared to a video essay, which is actually lots of effort but bigger return, then I can just quite easily tell myself, well, I just spend a bit more time on the video essays, which I think I prefer doing. I probably do overall. So it's kind of reassuring that it does better. And then now I just like consciously think my podcast, well, I'm just going to do the ones that I actually think, yeah, actually, I want to have that conversation or I want to do that. Whereas before, I was literally just like every week, like, I got to do one. Let's just talk about some random band, even though I've probably got nothing interesting to say, but just like try to churn them out. And again, I'm just trying tons of random different approaches, but I am genuinely into everything I've done. There's nothing on because I've got it in front of me now, nothing on my YouTube that I look at and think, why did I do that? Like, it all makes sense. It's all like, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that. Or some of it's I'm a bit like, oh, I didn't really need to do that. I just kind of was trying to find something that weak. But it's an interesting subject or it's something I'm interested. But it's just kind of like, yeah, I can see now the change from like loads of podcasts that didn't get very many listens to, a few shorts, a few jam videos, a few music like video essays. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a random approach, I will admit.
No, I'm actually fully on the same wavelength as you. I've been doing this properly for 2 years now. I started with YouTube, decided to finally give it a proper go 2 years ago. And it kind of escalated from there. And then, you know how these things happen. You try Instagram, you try TikTok, try all these different platforms, and you just end up doing everything really. And you find what works for you. And I thought with YouTube, like, oh, I need to be posting every day, multiple times a day. And, I did all that. And then the thing that I've realized is that for the smaller the shorter video apps, so like TikTok, Instagram, it's good to post every day. It's good to post multiple times, jump on trends, all that. And it's really easy to do it. It's really quick. It's fun. But with things like this, podcasting, longer videos, things that take more time, and also just the platform in general, YouTube, like I'm the same as you. Like when I started my podcast, I went on all these websites, Reddit and Matchmaker and all these websites, which I still use to this day. But I used to try and post several podcasts a week thinking, oh yeah, if there's more podcasts, there's more reach, there's, potentially I'll reach all these different people. It never worked out that way. I've had some episodes do better than others, but the thing that I've learned above all else is that I think that less is more. I think it's better to rein it back and find something that works. And obviously if there is more demand, if people are saying, oh, we want to hear more, it'd be great to hear more, then great, step it up. But as you said, it's so much work putting a podcast together.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, even for me, like one a week, like, geez, like it took a lot for me to just let it go. Like, okay, I'll give you a really good example. Like how people pull out from podcasts and they just leave you and then you're like, oh, great, well, I've got nothing for this week. Like I have got reserved topics. I could do the whole just one man podcast and I hate doing that, I'll be honest. Like I do my very best, and sorry to everyone that's listened to the episodes that I've done that are just singular. I did them. I am still proud of those episodes. I did my very best. I had the same approach, and I've said it on the podcast before, it just doesn't compare in terms of listening back to it compared to a genuine conversation between two people. There is just, it's never going to be the same.
No. I've never done a podcast episode of just me. I couldn't do it. And it took me ages to even do a video essay, which I guess is a solo podcast, because I was just, without having someone to talk back is very strange, very, very weird to me. And you have to kind of like artificially create some sense of like charisma or something. Like, I'm not saying I have no charisma, but you have to artificially like create a repartee with nothing on the other end of the camera when you do a video essay. Like, how do I put intonation into my voice in a way that I naturally would in a conversation when there's no one else on the other end? To me, that feels very unnatural. But I think I'm getting a bit better. I think the first video essay I did was a little bit monotone, maybe, because there's no one on the other end of the line. But it's baby steps, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, it's just practice. I mean, it's the same when I first started this podcast. You go back, I think there's over 100 episodes now. And in the very beginning, I say the first 10, 15, maybe 10, 20, it was very stiff, like I still had the same sort of approach, but one thing I learned is that you need to make your guest feel comfortable and you need to make it more of a discussion. And some episodes are going to be just pure, straight interview, and you try and get something and you just can't, and you do your best. But a lot of the time, the people you're conversing with want to have a conversation, and it escalates into that. And whenever there's something I can jump on, something that the guest says, anything like that, I just go, okay, let's roll with that, because too many people just stick to this like it's fucking script. And you can't deviate from, like, I've been on other people's podcasts where they ask me a question, we get onto something, I'm like, oh great, let's just talk about this, and then they cut me off, or they're like, oh no, let's go back to this thing, and it's like, no, let that trail of thought go, like ride that wave, you can come back to your questions later, like,
It was interesting because I find myself massively disproportionately listening to podcasts that are also very like freewheeling and more conversation. I don't really listen to the kind of composed ones, which I don't think are as common, but they do exist out there, and it doesn't really do it for me. But I notice, being on other people's podcasts, everyone has like a different approach. So I got some good friends who do a podcast called Fire the Cannon, which is about like literature. And when I was on, I've been on it a couple of times, I think, actually, but when I was on it last, because I have to do all my editing because no one else does this with me, I was very conscious of like not just talking endlessly, because I wanted to make sure that they didn't have tons of editing to do when it came to it. But I think at the same time, they're just like, look, Theo, he does all the editing. He doesn't mind how much editing there is. You should just talk endlessly. So at the end of it, they were like, oh, you're a bit quiet. And I was like, I don't want you to have too much editing because I can talk shit a lot, but you're going to have to cut it all out. But they're like, no, it's fine. He doesn't mind that. Whereas for me,
that's a lie.
Oh yeah. No,
there's no one there that no one likes editing podcasts. That's a lie. I refuse to believe that.
No, The only thing I like about editing podcasts is you go through it and sometimes you listen to it again and you hear that one bit where you're like, oh, that was actually quite funny, or you're like, oh, that was like
Yeah,
that was a nice little bit. But it's not the editing; it's the listening through it again and being like, oh yeah, we had a bit of chemistry there or something. But the act of editing, because otherwise I wouldn't listen to my own podcasts again. If I didn't edit it, I wouldn't listen to it at
same,
all.
same.
So sometimes you get that little moment where you're like, oh, this is actually a decent episode or something like that.
Yeah, but on the flip
But otherwise,
reverse, you get the opposite as well. If you didn't think it went as well, then you have to sit and listen to why it didn't go well. I mean, I've been lucky. I've never had episodes where it's gone badly, like, you know, like negative. But I have had a few where I really, really tried to get a conversation going, and it just never happened. And I'm like, but there was only, I think there's only one specific time I can think of, and maybe 2 or 3 months ago, where that happened, and people still liked it. So I don't know, maybe it's just in my head, but like, you
I
know,
think sometimes it's that because to me, I've had a couple where I'm like, it didn't feel like there was much chemistry in the conversation.
yeah,
And then my girlfriend has listened to it after I'd said that to her. She's like, it was fine. But I don't know whether I saved it a bit in editing and turned like an hour conversation into a half an hour podcast, which makes it sound snappier and therefore inherently a little bit more kind of productive or whatever. Or whether it just wasn't as bad as I thought. But like you, I've never actually had like a bad one. But there's definitely been a few where I've been like, oh, I didn't feel it, and I get very avoidant if that happens. Like I don't want to have to listen to it and edit it. So it's really bad. So it ends up like taking a week longer than the others because every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh, it's going to be terrible. Oh, it's going to be really bad. But yeah, it's never actually that bad. It's never that bad.
So your podcast is called Underrated, Overrated. Tell us about the podcast and why people should listen.
Yeah, so it's underrated, overhated. So
Oh,
specifically,
I've got that written down. I just
that's
mispronounced
fine.
that.
Yeah,
Sorry. Oh, underrated, overhated.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's just about underappreciated music. So I guess it was started just before lockdown, so I can just avoid being one of those people who just started it just because there's nothing else to do during lockdown. I did start it before we even knew we were going to go into lockdown, so I'm not quite that person. Although there were other hobbies I started during lockdown.
Yeah.
Because I've always kind of thought, what is the point of music criticism these days? I just like, there's no real point in reading some, quite frankly, idiot music journalists. They're usually clueless, talking about something and saying, I think this is 4 stars or 5. Like, no one cares because these days you can go on YouTube or Spotify, and if you think it's a 3 star and I listen to it, like, it takes, there's, I'm not paying to listen to it. I don't, it's not like the 70s where I would rely potentially on a reviewer that I agreed with a lot of the time to to structure my purchasing habits. I don't have to do that anymore because I could just listen to it and make my own mind up. And if I want to buy the CD or DVD or whatever, I'll just do that. So to me, it's not like it's kind of, it is a music criticism podcast in a way, but ultimately it isn't because it's just about talking about things that I think are underrated. It's kind of, hey, you might not have heard of this. So I get people on and I introduce them to something they've not heard of. And then it's just a really frank conversation. They don't have to like what I've sent them, but hopefully they do. And it's just that kind of thing.
I agree with you, but I will add a caveat to this. I think that it depends on the musical background and sort of credentials of the person criticizing. Like, take that guy on YouTube. What's that guy, that YouTuber? He does the I always forget his name. His nickname is Melon.
No
The guy
idea.
with the glasses, Canadian dude. Oh my god, this is gonna drive me crazy. This is the second time this has happened. Fantano, Anthony Fantano.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Right.
No, I don't have to go Google that afterwards. Yeah, so when Anthony Fantano does his reviews, obviously they've always famously got, a combination of applause and criticism in equal measure. But I think he's always fair because what he tends to attack is more the professionalism and the instrumentation and stuff like that. He doesn't like strip it apart like in an unfair way. He always approaches everything the same way. So like when he's criticized, for instance, Eminem in the past, it's always because he looks at the back catalogue and sort of says, well, this is like the height of his career. This is what he was doing then. This is what he's doing now. This isn't acceptable given that, you know, we had this before. So why do we have this kind of low quality now? And it will be everything from the lyrics, the quality of the lyrics, the quality of the production, etc. And like, for instance, I remember he did a criticism of a Green Day album. I think it's Father of All, that one. And I hadn't heard it before, but I decided to just look at his, you know, watch his review and then listen to it afterwards. And, you know, I don't always agree with him. There are times when I've disagreed with him, but with that one, he was spot on. Like he basically tore it apart and said that, you know, this album is essentially, and apparently this is admitted by Green Day or people close to them, that the album was simply put out as a kind of an FU to their record label because they wanted to get out of their contract and do their own thing, which I think in retrospect is really doing a disservice to your fans, like deliberately putting out a poor record. But when you listen to it, it is like just half an hour of crap. Like it's this is the same band that brought you, like, you know, Dookie and Insomniac and American Idiot, but then you listen to it and it's I've lost you on the mic, but I'll keep going. So like it's the same band that brought you all of these different amazing albums, and then you listen to it and it's very weak and kind of nothing inspiring in there, and you know they're phoning it in. You know they're not trying hard. That's I think the thing that really incensed me when I listened to it, and I think why he gave it such a bad negative review. And bringing it back to your original point, the reason I brought this up in the first place, I think a review like that is useful to music fans because it's a way of saying, don't waste your time listening to this album. I've done the listening for you. Trust me, you don't want to go there, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't disagree with music criticism broadly, of people being critical, for example, because it's just talking about art. We should talk about art as whatever we want. I think it's just more, I guess the bigger issue is, well, firstly, I just want to get my controversial opinion out of the way. I think Green Day's albums are all dreck. Get that out of the way. Let's not linger
snap.
on that.
Whoa. Let's back up a second.
Damn it! I shouldn't have said it because
no. I love this. I like someone who has a different opinion. I just want to know why. So you don't like Dookie. You think American Idiot's horse shit. Why?
This is why my opinion. I always like to say this. Like, my opinion isn't inherently worth something. I just don't like that kind of pop punk. Right. So when I was when we were that age. I think you're a similar age to me. You're probably about 30, late 20s, something. What? You're older,
my God!
I don't know.
I'm 28, but fuck, he went straight for 30, man. Jesus.
I mean, 2 years is nothing.
I thought you were going to attack Green Day, not me. Jesus Christ.
No, we were a similar age. So let's say when it's like 2001, 2002, Green Day were quite big. I was, and I still am. I was a proper Le Wrong generation kid. I hated everything. I just thought it was crap. I grew up on like Bob Marley, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, blah blah blah. And when I heard this stuff, I was just like, this is crap. This is crap. Like, it was just really bad. And it was then that I started like understanding like there's a whole history of music, you know, going back hundreds of years, but even just popular music, let's say going back to the 60s or late 50s, with music that is actually like vibrant and colorful, dynamic and interesting, and I just did not hear it on the radio at the time. Now, having since grown up, I can look back and there are tons of great albums from that era, but none of them were big. So there's tons of music now that I can find due to the brilliant accessibility of the internet from around 2001 to 2006 or 7, which is brilliant, but it's just not big stuff. So to me, Green Day, Blink-182, I don't know, tons of those, I just have no interest in whatsoever. I always thought this is flat, uninteresting, boring. And look, I'm not in any way claiming to be like an authority on music, but let's bring this back around to people like Anthony Fontano. And I don't think it's a personal problem with him. I think it's just the way that kind of people like to have like put people on a pedestal. The fact that his opinion is somehow worth more than someone else on the street, I guess it's a product of him working hard on his channel. That's all great. But actually, I think we should move towards a world where we don't have these kind of tastemakers and people who have these opinions. That's what I mean, I personally try to avoid that kind of thing on my channel, because I will frankly say if I hate something, but I want to specify, like, I'm just who the hell am I? Like, seriously, who is Anthony Fantano? Like, he's an entertainer. He gets tons of views because he's entertaining. He knows a bit about music, great, but like, he's not a musician, which doesn't preclude him from having an opinion or from being able to productively talk about it. But he's just some bloke. Like, you're just some bloke. I'm just some bloke. We're all just some bloke. And there's nothing inherent about why his opinion should really particularly impact our listening skills. I think we should. I don't know. I kind of wish we were in a world where we could get beyond that a little bit and actually. Sorry, you're going to say something. I didn't want to keep going because I could.
No. Keep going.
I don't know. I think I lost my train of thought there a little bit, but I just think it is a bit of a shame that we do have a world still where we do have tastemakers, because the kind of dominant position of reviewers for like Rolling Stone magazine and stuff like that, they were tastemakers to a large extent, and to some extent they just kind of shamelessly followed a few trends and pretended they were there at the beginning. And in a lot of other cases, they've actually massively negatively impacted the kind of critical reception more broadly and commercial success of bands and scenes. And the fact that we've not entirely moved beyond that, when I think the internet we could have gotten beyond that in a way, I think is a great shame. I think it's much more productive and interesting. Yeah, like, be honest, if you hate a song or a piece of music, like, I will do that. But it's much more interesting. This is back to why I do my podcast the way I do. To be like, hey, look, I know the kind of music you like, and I know the kind of music you don't like. So why don't you come on my podcast and I'll suggest a few things that maybe you will really like. And if you don't, that's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's take the piss out of it a bit. Let's, just chat. I think it's a bit more productive for someone to be like, hey, actually, I really enjoyed listening to these tracks that I've never heard. Or this band, yeah, maybe I'll give them another go. But personally, I don't really get it. I mean, I could do episodes about why I hate X, Y, Z songs or whatever, but I don't know. It feels a bit clickbaity as well, I think. Which, look, we all have to work within that world a little bit. I'm not beyond clickbait to some extent, but I think that kind of, fake clickbait entertainment above info can be a little bit. And in saying all this, I'm not against Anthony Fantano at all or other people. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I just watched his stuff and went, meh, like, yeah, it's fine. Don't quite get it, but like, power to him. It's more the general structure of putting one person's taste on a pedestal above. Yeah.
Okay.
The moral of the story is we're all just random people.
I want to ask one question with regards to that, because what you're saying there, or what you said within that speech, was that, well, who is this guy? What are his credentials? Which is a fair point. So let's say
no, it's not entirely that. It's not even that. It's
but to that point though, like, let's say you take someone from the industry who is fully involved, who is successful. Let's say, I don't know, who would be a good example? Who's like a really successful musician who's got a lot of knowledge about the industry? Let's say Paul McCartney sets up a podcast and starts reviewing modern music, just for argument's sake, right?
No, I wouldn't care about that either, and I don't think anyone should.
No, but like,
the point wasn't.
But I know that's not your overarching point, but one of the points that you made was that who is this guy? Why should we take his opinion seriously? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, okay, well, what about a musician who's been very successful in the industry, has worked with lots of different, musicians over the years, and has stayed relevant this whole time? If he gives an opinion, is that worth any more because he's involved in the industry, or is it still worth the same as Joe on the street?
In terms of reviewing and in terms of recommending, I think it's worth as much as anyone else's, really. I mean, there's a slight caveat to that, because some people, like, in the same way, like with food, like, some people literally know nothing about food and they'll serve you like a dish and you're like, this is like unseasoned, overcooked crap.
Right.
Like that. Like, some people have bad taste. But the problem is that even people with bad taste, I don't want to be like hyper subjectivist with this, but like even people with terrible taste can probably accurately review for other people with terrible taste. And the problem there's no accounting for taste. Like I think Green Day are crap. Like let's get back to that. And people who like my girlfriend really likes Green Day, and I just hear it and I'm like, you must have no taste. Like what is this absolute dreck? Um, and I think that the difference with Paul McCartney is like he is massively influential. I mean, he's one of the greats. Like he is possibly the greatest melodist at the very least in popular music. Um, and on that point, you know, the point of listening to his opinion would be, hey, this guy listened to this stuff and this is what he's into. It shaped him at least partly into what he is as a musician. So I feel like there's something more productive there. But if you're just like an not official, professional tastemaker, I'm not really sure. And this isn't to, it's not to drag people like Anthony Fantano down at all. I think it's more, I should probably have rephrased it, to elevate everyone else up because I have loads of friends who either are or are not musicians who can just like, I talk to them about music and like, it's just amazing. Like I learn so much just like from talking to them. I think it's super productive. I think they've got interesting opinions and like, hey, listen to this, or a new perspective on something I do already like or don't like. And you know, it's just I get at the end of the day the reason Anthony Fantano is big is because he's put the hard work in, and that's realistically how you do it. But I think people are well served remembering that. So again, it's not dissing him or anyone like that at all. He got to his position through hard work, through being entertaining, whatever. That does not make him a tastemaker. That doesn't mean you should put any more stock into his opinion. But I think a lot of people do. And I'm not saying everyone does, and I'm not saying there isn't a kind of a valuable
Did you
service
not
to it,
think?
but I think a lot of people do.
Do you not think that the way he structures that is maybe why people respect his opinion? Because if he would just be like 7 out of 10, it's shit, don't bother, like
Mm-hmm.
that would be one thing. But he actually kind of strips it apart from, as I discussed before, like every different side of things: the
Mm-hmm.
production, the instrumentation, the performance, the lyrics. I mean, I can't, to my mind, think of many reviewers out there that have done that. And do you know what? There are many reviewers actually on YouTube specifically, like laid back, being one, that just listen to the track and they give a very, and this is nothing against laid back. I really like the guy. But when you compare it to Anthony Fantano, it's very stripped back. It's just a kind of like a
Yeah.
quick, like, okay, I like the vibe. Yeah, it's all right, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And then that's it. And I feel like that, by comparison, is kind of less of an insightful review, less of a review that I would maybe take seriously in comparison to someone
Mm-hmm.
like Anthony Fantano. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, so I'm not saying don't respect his opinion or his craft or the way he puts things together. Like certainly some people, realistically, just the way the world works, are more articulate, like he is, than other people. They're more entertaining. I think the point isn't he isn't doing a great job or like his videos aren't great or his opinions aren't well formed. It's just it really is just that I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a dirty, stinking communist kind of socialist dude, but I'm not actually a communist. Maybe I'm a socialist, but it's like everyone. I don't know. It's kind of like the democratization of taste as well. I see it like let's not elevate these people to these like positions of like they are the tastemaker. That's really what it comes down to. And I have a similar opinion about even just like if you come back to Paul McCartney about rock stars. Rock stars are just people, um, and we shouldn't put them on this pedestal just because they're brilliant musicians, which a lot of them are, who are worthy of respect in that way. That doesn't make them above us. They're richer, they're famous, whatever, but I think it's a very unproductive. I think it's comes back into the whole to bring back around to like being a YouTuber. I think there are some very big YouTubers who I would say are kind of rock stars, and there are some other YouTubes who are even bigger or just as big as those who aren't rock stars. And I think there's something about that rock star relationship with a fan base which I think is a bit unproductive. So if I think a lot, I watch a lot of like political stuff as well on YouTube, and you got someone like David Pacman who is like left wing, social democrat kind of American dude who's been doing YouTube politics for as long as anyone else. I mean, he's huge. He's bigger than most people, but he is not at all a rock star. He's quite he's quite academic, firstly, but he's also quite modest, I think, in the way he does things and talks about things. He's not got this kind of relationship with his fan base, which encourages or even allows a sort of parasocial relationship. And I think he's brilliant. I think he's amazing. I think he's one of the best political YouTubers, if not the best out there. It's a shame we don't have that kind of thing for like a British politics. I think he's brilliant. And there are other YouTubers who are like maybe a quarter of his size, who I do think are a lot more rock star in their relationship, particularly with their fan base. And I think sometimes it's not even the YouTuber's fault. It's just the way that fan bases work. But I do think there's something around that we should be a little bit like, ooh, not suspicious of them individually, but suspicious of that kind of community or relationship. And I'm not saying that, again, Anthony Fantano, I'm not saying he cultivates that relationship. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm not into the fan base or community enough to know. But I do think, I mean, it's a bit of a meme. Like, we all know, like, there are Fantano fanboys out there who are a little bit insane, who genuinely do think, like, his opinion is, like,
gospel. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, my opinion here, my stance on this is possibly slightly ill-articulated, but it's quite particular. And I'm not trying to say it's very nuanced, but I just don't want to be taken in a very straightforward way about it, because I think, he does a good job of being entertaining, and he's articulate, and like he does a good job of breaking things down. But that doesn't elevate him into a position that some people have put him in. I don't know. I'm not trying to shit on the guy individually who does a great job, nor am I trying to shit on his fans. I think we can all fall into those kind of unproductive relationships with people we've never met. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit. I do kind of think though, like, I don't know, maybe coming back, I almost denied it before, but I will admit, like, if you know nothing about cooking and you tell them you're a food reviewer, I don't think, like, many food critics fucking clueless. Like, do you know what I mean? Whatever. Tons of music critics, if you don't know what a fucking major scale is, you don't know what timbre versus dynamics is, you don't know, like, what functional harmony is, maybe you shouldn't be reviewing certain types of music. Well, maybe you shouldn't really be reviewing music because you probably don't have a bloody clue what you're talking about, unfortunately. Like, yeah, you maybe, and I'm not saying he does or doesn't. I don't know enough of what he does to know that. And again, it's not about him particularly. But sometimes I've read so many music reviews in papers, in magazines, or online, on, like website, like proper like websites, whether it's Rolling Stone or whatever. And I'm just like, I really do. Rolling Stone
proper websites, not that crappy YouTube stuff. Proper ones you should actually listen to or read.
No, I mean, when I say proper, I mean like Rolling Stone is proper in the way that I guess I'm saying is like they're paying their journalists.
It's an institution.
Like someone got paid to write this. I sometimes read them like someone got paid to write this, and this is like, it's not just I disagree with it, but they're saying things that are literally straightforwardly incorrect because they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to music. Similarly, like if I sat down and commentated football,
what are we talking about? Well, give me some examples.
Oh, I can't give you any specific examples, but I've read, I mean, how many fucking, in spite of how much I hate it sometimes, I have read lots and lots of like, reviews and stuff.
But in magazines like Rolling Stone, like, is there more inaccuracies?
Yeah, so some people would use the word key change. It's like, oh, this song has like a really great key change, and I'm listening to it. It's like, no, there's literally no key change. It's all like completely diatonic.
Oh,
wow! You just said a thing. It happens all the time.
No, but that's mad. That's mad though that it happens in a magazine like that. Like that, someone should get fired for something like that. Surely.
Well, I mean, like, there's no, like, what's the standard? There's no standard.
There has to be a standard.
Well, there should be. I agree, but there isn't, and there never has been.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
I agree. I agree. The world, we should have standards and things, but the unfortunate reality is there never really has been, and there's no like official school of standards which says no, your journalist got it wrong.
No, it's okay to get things wrong, but I think in a music magazine that's been around for as long as Rolling Stone, if there are authors in there that don't know the differences between, pitches, key changes, things like that, like basic music theory, then they don't really have any business criticizing and reviewing the music. I think that's kind of a basic thing we could probably all agree on.
I agree. That is my point, but I guess the wider reality is that it doesn't matter. Like this is what these people don't have a clue. It's what I was saying all along. Like, these people literally have no idea what they're talking about, and they get paid for this shit. What are you gonna do though?
Jeez, Joe, I love your polarizing opinions. I want to get more of them, so I'm just going to deliberately. You touched a little bit on pop punk music, but I just want to get your kind of. I'm going to go through different genres now with you, and I just want to get your kind of whatever comes to mind. So here's your chance to kind of say your thoughts. Firstly, on pop punk, what are your thoughts on it as the genre as a whole?
So I want to preempt it by guys. If I offend anyone who loves these genres, I genuinely don't mean to. I'm genuinely one of those weird people. If someone wants to shit on the music I like, I love hearing it. I think it's hilarious. So in that spirit, pop punk is just like petulant immaturity, a bunch of idiots who don't really know their instruments. They don't know how to play. The problem is sometimes with pop punk is that some of them clearly know how to play, but they kind of affect this kind of incompetence. So I think someone like Sum 41 can clearly play a bit better than Green Day, but there's this affectation at times. I think it's the idea that it is cool to be bad at one's instrument. And maybe because I'm a massive nerd, I don't think that's cool at all. I think it's cool to be good at your instrument. I think it's cool to lock yourself in your room for 8 hours at a time until you can play cleanly. If you're not going to do that, get off the stage. Next band.
So you think that the pop punk bands are kind of like messy, like even in their production? So because I don't know, like I've never listened to sort of a Green Day record and thought, this sounds messy, or they've not practiced enough or something.
So there's a few. I mean, pop punk's quite broad. Like I think live they're a bit sloppier. It's quite easy in a studio. But yeah, the point about sloppiness it's not necessarily about sloppiness so much as this is a personal thing. This is a very personal thing that I'm about to say. Is I hate someone picking up a guitar and every song just being like, no, don't do that. Just I hate it.
So just
I don't
monotonous.
mind that. I don't mind it doing for like dynamics in a certain part of a song, but it's like songwriting laziness. It's just really obnoxious. Like you can pick up a guitar and do that within a year of playing it. So if you've been playing for 20 years, why are you still doing it? Why don't you just try a little bit harder? So, there are some punk bands who have a real sophistication to their songwriting. And I hate to be really boring because it is a very boring opinion. But The Clash are very good. For example, they're undeniably punk. But these are guys who are deeply invested in a wide range of musical styles and who bring that to their songwriting. And you can do that and still stay authentically punk. I'm often told that saying that you like The Clash as an example of liking a punk band doesn't count because it's The Clash. And I probably agree.
What?
I think it doesn't count because everyone likes The Clash. It doesn't really matter. Like they kind of get a bit beyond punk.
See,
like you don't.
I gotta say this whole concept of like, oh, that doesn't count. Like, who the fuck is? It's like goes back to what you were saying about that. There's no like standards authority. It's like who gets to decide? Like, oh well, you can't include that band. Everyone likes
people
them.
say it facetiously. I think they say it facetiously, but I think I don't know. It's a point well taken sometimes because it's like some people don't like hard rock, but they love Queen. It's like, well, it doesn't kind of count, even though Queen can be hard rock because it's just Queen. They're just an institution, and Clash are kind of like that. It's like, well, it's just the Clash. Like they're a bit.
Yeah, I agree with it. Yeah, because like they're their own genre, aren't they? Like, can you think of any other band that sounds like the Clash or Queen? Like, I can't think of any at all. Like, exactly. It's so like they've created their own genre almost.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way,
and I think the best bands do that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's keep.
What else do you want me to shit on?
What do you think about nu metal?
It's just never been part of my listening. I heard bits of it, I've heard bits of it and just thought like not into it. I couldn't even say I particularly hate it. It was never commercially big enough for me to be exposed to it to the point where I would hate it. Do you know what I mean? And that's not me shitting on it for its lack. I mean,
I don't know. That's pretty fucking controversial. I mean, at one point, bands like Limp Bizkit and Korn were huge. Linkin
yeah,
Park.
that was like one or two albums, and then I feel like kind of there wasn't tons and tons. I don't know. Maybe there was. I've never listened to the radio very much, but I think especially now they kind of burned brightly commercially for a short while and then kind of burnt out. They really did become super, super uncool to everyone. Even in like 2009, maybe it really just completely like snuffed out a candle. So I never had that like long-term exposure. Maybe it was a little bit later than 2009, but I never had that long-term exposure as I did with Green Day. Like Green Day, like they just keep going, and I think you can just every new generation's like, oh yeah, Green Day again. I'm like, it's this fucking band again, Jesus Christ. Whereas New Battle, like, yeah, I probably would dislike it to the same extent as Green Day or like pop punk stuff.
Okay. What do you think about jazz fusion or progressive jazz, experimental jazz?
That as a big genre, I can really like a lot of it. I can really like. I guess it's such a big genre that I don't know what you would include and what you wouldn't. But I guess, you know, for everyone from like Mahavishnu Orchestra through like Return to Forever, I can listen to and enjoy. It's not my favorite music in the world. Jeff Beck is a guitarist who I've always been a big fan of, and he had like a big jazz fusion phase. I'm into that. More contemporary bands, Snarky Puppy. I don't necessarily put them on a lot, but I can definitely enjoy it. You can put them on and just enjoy it as like just by standard. And if you go all the way back to the classics, like I don't know, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew, it doesn't click with me as much on that one. That feels like a really big, hard to kind of get to grips with album. But most jazz is not really my thing. Most jazz is a little bit beyond me. And I say that as a musician who, you know, tried to learn jazz a bit and realize it's not really my thing. So I feel like jazz is different enough. It's like a totally different family of music for the most part. And jazz fusion's kind of a bit more jazz plus rock. But jazz is as different to popular music as like classical is. I think it's you know, if anything, you've got like a few big families of music: classical, popular, folk, and then within that, I'd include like all folk traditions, and then jazz. And I kind of more like the folk and popular music things, and classical I like bits of, and jazz I like bits of, but they're not really where I feel at home. So I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying more than what I've already said.
Thoughts on mumble rap?
This is something I hear a lot about, but I only really know it from the memes. I don't think I've ever listened to, but I've never really knowingly listened to it. Maybe I have.
You definitely heard it on the radio. Definitely.
I never listen to the radio. That's another thing I hate. I'll shit on the radio.
Oh, okay. Shit on the radio then. What's wrong with
Oh,
radio music? Pop music.
I didn't expect this to turn into me hating on things. It's nothing to do with the music necessarily. I think it's that fake charisma that the DJs always have to cultivate. So if there's a song on, like, even if it's something I dislike, it's like, oh, whatever. But then it's like, hey guys, welcome back. I don't want to listen to that because, and again, it's not their fault. They have to kind of keep this going. There's like fake energy relentlessly, and it really is like chalk on fingernails to me. Even like the more like Radio 4, I think it's just an absolute bore, like snooze fest. And I say this as a nerd myself, but I listen to it and I think, like, why would I not just read a book about what you're talking about? You just like, its audience is like retirees who need to put the volume up very high and for people to speak very slowly and clearly. I will just read a book if I want to read about this. Thank you, or learn about this. I don't see the point in Radio 4. I'm a bit of a philistine in that regard.
Man, I was not expecting this, but I'm loving it. This is hilarious. Okay. Any other genres or anything just about music in general that you hate? Any particularly controversial opinions you have? Now's your time.
I don't know. Controversial opinions. I don't know. Maybe like Rolling Stones pretty overrated, I guess.
No,
right.
That's fair. Loads of people say that.
That's fair. Oh, that's all right. I thought you might be a big Rolling Stones fan, but you sound like you probably just agree. I don't know.
I mean, for me, I this is one of the reasons why I'm liking this, because I like it when someone has a controversial opinion or something different to offer to the table. Because look, you know, at the end of the day, people take this stuff way too seriously. You know, like for instance, I might release these clips, and then people will be like, oh, "How can the guy say that? How dare he?" And it's like it's an opinion. It's not like I've turned around and said it's the law now. Everyone must have this opinion. How dare you know? It's just an opinion. Who cares? That's why it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I did a video essay a few months ago, and I've started doing it. It's like, what makes this song work? And the first one was a Bob Dylan song. The second one was a song by the Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. I love the song. But I start the episode, the video essay, by saying, are the Dire Straits the most boring band of all time? Like, are they the least cool band ever? And I think the answer, if not definitely yes, is probably yes. I mean, they're deeply, deeply, deeply uncool. Anyway.
Why? No, expand. No, before we go on, I mean, you've just shouted on Dire Straits. Continue, please.
Well, I'm not even saying objective. There's no such thing as objective cool. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, in the common imagination, you know, they're the band who wear like neon colored headbands, sweatbands, who like sing like country rock at the height of punk. You know, it was 1977 or 78 when their debut album came out. They sounded like a band from 10 years previously, or even further. They were never cool, deeply, deeply uncool, like in the common imagination. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I did this video essay about why they're a great band, why Brothers in Arms is a brilliant song.
Were you taking the piss the whole time?
No, I was being deadly serious. It just opened up with the simple fact that they're not very cool, and that's perfect.
So this was your attempt to defend them then?
Well, it wasn't even defending them. It's just, I just thought it was a commonly acknowledged fact. Anyway, people lost, I got a few very negative comments on this.
What's the worst comments you got? Come on, share them.
Oh, I don't know. I think it was actually on a Facebook. I posted it to Facebook on some group or something, and someone was just clearly hadn't watched it, because they were like, "What's this young lad? Oh, I'm sure he'll go and listen to his Ed Sheeran." It was all this kind of stuff.
Oh, it's like boomers or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like proper boomers. Yeah. And look, the point is, some bands are uncool and some bands are cool. I'm not saying like from an objective standpoint, but we know, like, instinctively, if I'm listening to ABBA, and I think ABBA are a great band, like, we know that that's uncool.
What? Whoa! What's uncool about ABBA? ABBA's great.
Oh, no, I know you're being silly. Like, nothing.
No, I like ABBA. ABBA's cool.
Yeah, I love ABBA as well. I think they're great, but I think cool in the common perception, mainstream perception, is definitely a thing, and we all know it. Like,
okay, Jacob. What is cool?
Exactly. No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
No, but in your opinion, what is like the conventional cool in music?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's a single version of it, but I think we instinctively know. It's like, hey guys, you know, I'm a big fan of the Beach Boys. People are like, what? There's something slightly goofy and uncool about them. ABBA, like, yeah, they're cheesy pop. Yeah, we listen to them at like weddings, but they're uncool. Like, whereas if you're like, you know, I'm a big, you know, Led Zeppelin are at least cooler. Like, they're kind of a bit more swagger. If we're talking about like hard rock, and
so that's more what we're on about, is like having a kind of an edge to you, a swagger, a way that you hold yourself or compose yourself, that kind of thing.
I don't know. It's potentially, you know, it's a socially constructed fake thing, but we can still point to it, and we know what is cool and what is not cool. I mean, personally, I will listen to tons of, I don't know, like progressive rock, and I'll say like, this is so cool. Obviously, I know by like mainstream definition it's not cool, but I'm just saying there is.
Wait, who's saying progressive rock isn't cool?
I mean, I totally agree. It is the genre of chads and handsome people. That's all I can say about it.
It's the cool person's choice.
Progressive rock is a genre I really like. But even then, I love to take the piss out of it. I mean, it's a bunch of like nerds who dress up in capes and sing about elves. Like, it's just, what is this? What am I listening to? How much acid did these guys take to think that this is a good idea? I mean, it was a good idea, but you have to take so much acid to think it's a good idea that I'm just baffled.
I'm so glad that Jen put us in touch, man. This is brilliant.
But like, even progressive rock, look, is a genre I love. But I will not just take the piss out of it, but I just don't think there's much good past a certain date. I just think I love the first generation stuff, and then it kind of becomes a little bit inbred, and it just starts to sound a little bit like it's treading the same grounds a bit. So Dream Theater, I've seen them
No,
live,
don't
great
kill Dream
performance.
Theater. It's one of my favorite bands. Oh, you're gonna shit on Dream Theater now. Oh, now my
I'm not gonna
heart
shit
is.
on them. I just, for me, I'm just this is one that I genuinely, it just doesn't click for me. That's all I'm saying. I just listen to it and I kind of think, oh, I think for them, I think once you get to a certain point with progressive rock, you lose a
I
lot
mean,
of
it's a
the
bit different.
wackiness.
It's a bit different in that they're progressive metal, though.
Yes, yeah,
So
yeah,
there is
exactly.
that.
But I think the lines are like, there's not like a solid line between them. But I don't entirely disagree. And I think
I
the
don't know. I tend to disagree with you on that one because, like obviously they take massive inspiration from bands like Rush and stuff like that. But when you listen to them, they're straight up metal. Like that's all. Obviously, when Mike Portnoy was in the band, it was like
yeah,
really shifted more towards like thrash metal.
yeah.
In some elements
I
were kind of almost like death metal-y. There was elements
Yeah,
of that.
I don't entirely disagree, but I mean, if you listen to like Red by King Crimson from 1974, that
Hmm.
everyone would call that progressive rock, but
Yes,
that's progressive metal in another way. It's very like ahead of its time.
it
It's not the same
is.
kind of thrash metal, but it's very like it's heavier, in fact, way heavier than most things that we would call like 80s new wave of
Sure.
British heavy metal. And I think the thing
Whoa.
is, hey, look, do you want to talk about genres? Genres again, social conventions. They're there to kind of label things. There's no real hard definition between one genre and another. So I don't know. But my point about for me personally, the shift away. The reason I start to like progressive rock less once we get past, I don't know, like the mid to late 70s, I feel like they it's a real loss of eccentricity. Like Dream Theater are progressive in many ways, but what they don't do that the first generation of progressive rock artists do, they're kind of less obviously a bunch of weirdos, and I think I miss that. Does that make sense? Like they're nerdy weirdos, but they're not like we're gonna dress up in capes and sing about dragons like whilst high on acid weirdo, which I think is the kind of weirdo I want in my progressive rock. And I'm not being facetious. I think there's something really lost in that kind of eccentricity. It's a very British thing as well.
I gotta say, actually, and I can't believe I'm gonna diss one of my favorite bands, but I do agree with a point of yours. See, with Dream Theater, I love Dream Theater,
Hmm.
but as far as if we're talking personality, they were all music students from Berkeley School of Music that studied it, and it's like sometimes, especially some of their songs are just, oh, we're just trying to see, we're having a competition, we're trying to see what we can do with this, and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And I think there's always a room for that in music, but I don't think you should ever deviate from being creative, like working for the song. Like Lars Ulrich always used to say that, like, yeah, okay, look, he's not the world's best drummer, but one thing that I think we can all agree on that our Lars Ulrich said was that he always plays for the song. That should always be
Hmm.
your kind of mindset. Don't play for yourself, play for the song. And I don't know, whenever you think of like iconic drum beats, at least for Metallica, like you always do think about like that certain songs stick out to mind, even though they might be simple as hell, like anyone can
Hmm.
play them, like your 5-year-old kid could play them, like it doesn't matter, they're
Hmm.
still iconic. But
Hmm.
then there's other bands that have like really technical drums, but they didn't play for the song, and
Hmm.
ultimately they're not as well remembered. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Which is why I will always defend Ringo Starr. Like
yeah,
again, not the most technical drummer, but man, I don't know. They work. The drum beats always work. It's a good sound.
yeah,
That's partly down to
I
George
don't
Martin's
get
production. It
I,
works.
I don't get that all the hate on Ringo either. Like I think it's the definition of the phrase in music, at least, less is more. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
some of his drum beats were actually pretty, like some of his drum
Yeah, yeah,
fills,
yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
damn sick, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think people compare him as a songwriter and a singer to George, Paul, and John, and then it's like, well, all right,
No,
fair enough. Obviously, he wasn't as good, but they kept him in the band for a reason. Like they didn't have to in a way, but like I'm sure they didn't just do it because they were friends. Like
I think
he
it's
was genuinely a good
chemistry.
drummer.
It's
Yeah,
chemistry. If you'd have taken
that is
him out of
part
the
of it.
band, it wouldn't be the Beatles. Sometimes it's just
Mm.
like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
true.
why, like when Led Zeppelin's drummer died, John Bonham. I mean, I think
Mm.
that it was probably more because it was their friend and personal, and they felt like that was just
True.
a kind of an
Yeah.
end to the band. But like, and every band is different. Like Alice in Chains kept going without Lane Stanley, which must have been a really tough decision, and they've made it work, but it's not easy. You know, Nirvana ended. Could anyone have really replaced Kurt Cobain? There might have been people
no.
that could have. No, like there might have been people that could sing similar or offer something to the band, but it wouldn't be the same band. And
it's true.
Well, it's always about the essence of the band, isn't it? Like,
that is true. It's true, because some bands go through the motions and they just churn people through constantly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's weird. Like, for instance, Megadeth recently fired their bassist again, Dave Ellefson, for like the third time or whatever. And
right.
I mean, look, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But for me, I always felt like in that band, it was always Mustaine and Ellefson are like the heart of the band, and everyone else, you know, obviously, as you say, it's the revolving door policy. Just everyone in that. But like after, I'd say the first 10 years of that band was very much that's Megadeth, and then after that, it just became whatever. I don't know, just and this is a trend that a lot of I know we're getting into specifics about metal, but metal is a very interesting genre actually, because I swear every band in metal seems to follow the same thing, where like their first couple of albums or like, I'll give you a couple of examples. So Metallica, Children of Bodom, and Megadeth, you take their first 4 albums, excellent, brilliant, fantastic, right? And then after that, I'm not saying that their music is bad, but there's a noticeable shift where they go mainstream, and suddenly it's like, the music is never the same. It's never as good. It never reaches that peak that it was at before then.
Yeah. I think there's something to, I think in metal in particular, because you have to bring so much energy to it. And I think your first few albums, if you're like one of those like great bands, you're probably bringing something fresh and new to it. And then that kind of energy can probably only be sustained for a limited amount of period. I mean, like everything they do is energetic, like stage performance, like the physicality of the way they play their instruments. I mean, you know, we all know that like there are metal bass players who it's taken physically a massive toll on their bodies, because like they're basically doing like full body workouts all the time whilst probably drunk or high. It really takes a massive toll on your body. So there's just the physical reality as well. Just like, you know, I think, you know, once the freshness is gone, they probably do seek out that kind of commercial thing a bit more, which is fine. I'm nothing against that, and sometimes it works. But I think people will always look back to the early days and think like, where did that go? And it's like, well, how long can you sustain that for? You know, how long can a football player sustain like top end performance? Like it's not the exact same thing, but there's a lot of burnout there. You know, it's going to happen inevitably.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I look at a band like Slayer. I mean, they recently retired, which was very interesting, because it's not often you hear like a metal band retiring. You know what I mean? Iron Maiden is still going, for fuck's sake. But the thing with Slayer is that they did change their sound. They did try the commercial route and stuff, but the heart of them never really changed. And they did actually kind of return to their original genre, which was interesting. And in the end, and I mean, the joke was always they made the same album, you know, every couple of years. Like, and it's kind of, oh, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But as to your point about physicality, I mean, their bassist Tom Araya, the singer, obviously his neck broke famously, and he was no longer able to headbang, which obviously is a big thing about being a metal musician. So for the last sort of 5 years of the band, maybe 5 years, I think, of the band, he basically had to just kind of soak it in and sort of turn awkwardly like this, but he couldn't actually engage like the rest of the band.
Did you have to do the Batman turn?
Not quite, no, but like you could tell he wanted to but he just couldn't do that. You know, it wasn't physically possible anymore. So
it's interesting. Well, so I mentioned the Beach Boys slightly facetiously before, but I am a huge Beach Boys fan. And we were talking about, you know, artists' lives taking a toll on them. Like Brian Wilson, I mean, he's 80 now anyway, so it's fair enough. But my God, I mean, he's been through a hell of a life. And his voice is, you know, even by the mid-70s, wasn't by, you know, let's say by 1975, wasn't what it was in 1967. In a way, 8 years is not a long time. But, you know, when you're fueled by, literally kilos of coke per year, like LSD, speed, weed constantly, alcohol, it takes a massive toll, and obviously, famously, a big toll on your mental health as well.
Yeah.
It's obviously not quite the same genre as metal, but it's still, Jesus. I mean, ugh, it's a nightmare, isn't it? To be a touring artist, I don't know how someone
Mm.
like, I guess, Bruce Springsteen, who clearly loves it. I mean, he clearly loves it. He probably loves the money as well. Fair enough. But I don't know how you can keep that up.
I'd argue, to be honest, the drugs, you have to do drugs to do it.
Yeah,
To be
I think
honest,
it's so.
like, yeah, I don't even think it's because everyone talks about, use, the weed and the alcohol and all this stuff, but
Mm,
like they don't often think about, as you said, the physicality of it. Even some like just a pop musician, like
mhm,
how many touring dates they have to do per year, the
mhm,
the dancing, the singing, everything. Like you probably do just need drugs to just keep going, to stay
mhm.
awake, to keep functioning.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's
yeah, people don't often realize that Bob Dylan, through his most productive period, was fueled by speed. Like,
yep.
he was on shit tons of speed. And I mean, sometimes you read the lyrics and, like, yeah, you can tell, like, Mr. Tambourine Man, great song. What the hell are you talking about? But a lot of them were. And I think it's similar to, like, there are other professions that aren't quite so rock star. Like, well, chef is a bit rock star at points, but that is a profession which is massively
Yeah.
fueled by, like, weed, nicotine at the very least, alcohol, and coke. Um, and it's just people really put their bodies through the ringer, don't they? um,
You got, I mean, you got to be passionate. I think that's the key
mm,
as well. You got to love what you do. Like if you're a chef, like I've worked in hospitality, and I
mm,
must say the only thing I can think is that they love what they do,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
it's less a job and more a lifestyle. Same with
it
the
is. Yeah,
musicians. It's like you got to
mm,
put your heart and energy and everything into it so that it's not
mm,
a job anymore. It's but the inevitability of everything catches up with you. It's like it's like that old saying, you need to choose a rest day, otherwise your body will choose it for you, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you just get sick. You just can't do it
yeah,
anymore, and it's
yeah.
it's
It's true.
difficult to learn to take a break. I'm a stickler for that. I'm a workaholic myself, and every now
Mm,
and again I just have to take a day where I just sit and do nothing, and it's difficult
yeah,
to even think about that, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. See, when I left uni, I was really interested in, like, potentially being a chef or something. I'm really into food. I love it, and I think I even just tried a few bit of kitchen work. And, slowly dawning on you what the reality is. I felt no problem whatsoever just bowing out straight away. Like, you're at the gate, you're about to go, and I'm just like, actually, looking at the other competitors, looking at everyone else who does, I'm just like, nah, I don't want this. I do not have this physically in me. I've just, nah, it's not gonna happen. Um, I think sometimes, I don't know. I'm saying this about myself. There's nothing wrong with quitting. I was just like, I realized this is just not gonna happen. I still love food. I can still do it in my own time. But you know what? Gordon Ramsay, I tip my hat, because Jesus, goddamn Christ, the amount of work that takes. I just don't want that life. But yeah, I'm quite curious what you do. Like, what do you do then? Like, are you YouTubing and stuff full time with your
Oh, me?
workaholism? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll try and make this quick. So basically, I do podcasting. I regularly release music on YouTube. I have a TikTok account.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm posting anywhere from 3 to 6 videos per day on there. I do daily live streams for about an hour or two. Do like
Mm-hmm.
song request streams, talking, whatever. Um, just a bit of everything, really. Acting
Yeah.
stuff, comedy,
Wow.
voice acting, just everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like point being that like the behind the scenes of this stuff takes a long time. A lot of the time people think, oh,
Yeah.
well, you just stick on the camera and you record, or you talk, podcasting's easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that eternal thing, isn't it? Like, well, I always talk to my friends, and we're so friendly
No,
when we talk.
no,
I thought,
no,
like, why don't
no,
we just record it? And
no.
I kind of, I'm sure most people, I was guilty of trying it that way when I first started podcasting. You get 2 episodes in, and you go, oh my God, this is not how it works. You need to, like, you either have to be very good at self editing whilst talking, or you have to do loads of editing
Yeah.
when it comes to it. So you have to choose one. You either have to self-edit and really have a control of the conversation, or get good at editing, or just keep your fingers crossed that you're actually just really fucking charming and interesting and funny. Like you have to choose one, basically.
The
Like
thing
with
is,
you,
I agree with you. I feel that like when it comes to doing a podcast, I live by the notion of you have to have structure with everything that you do. And to be honest, even if you do loads and loads of editing after the fact, you still need something that people can kind of logically follow. Like I don't know, like if you people listening to this podcast now, you notice that we shift from topic to topic. You know, there'll be things that I just won't return to because it's annoying as fuck when, you know, you go through one subject to the next and then suddenly you're going back to something you spoke about like 45 minutes ago. Like that's annoying as a listener. You don't want that. And obviously if you're doing a kind of a podcast where you're clipping and editing stuff up, I mean, obviously, yeah, conversations move forward and such, but it's very difficult to capture that in a organic way as well. Like that's the thing. I mean, yeah, I make it my mission in life, and especially doing stuff online, to be as authentic as possible. But the reality is that, you know, you are still presenting at all times. You know, like this is not the way I normally talk to, say, my friends in real life. It would be fucking weird if I would do that. Like, do you know what I mean? But
you know, I have I'm similar because of my girlfriend. You know, I record a lot in the house when she's around, and I say, you know, I feel like I have to be really fake in a way. And she's like, you're not actually being fake. You're doing certain things to be less day-to-day conversational, and you have to make sure that you're not just talking like you would to your mate who's just hanging out next to you. There's authentically performing, I think, is kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
And you can't just be really straightforwardly authentic in a kind of straightforward way. Otherwise, it's just going to be boring. It's just
that's the thing. You think about, like, you go to a live show and you see someone talk, do a comedy set, or even if it's just like a Q&A style thing, they're still going to kind of tell stories in that entertaining way. Whereas as you say, if they would just come out and just be like, yeah, so what do you want to know? That's going to be boring as fuck. Or if it would be like, if you think about a genuine real life conversation, what does that tend to be? It tends to be that there's parts that are a bit monotonous, or like where you just don't say anything for a while, or, you know, maybe some parts of the convo are just boring. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult to get to the good parts, even in real life. So to then try and, like, I've never seen that. I've never seen anything online or in the public eye or entertainment stuff that isn't performed, staged in some shape or form. Performed maybe is a better word, I think.
I think someone like Joe Rogan gets away with it a bit more. Like, he's at the point where he's so big that I think he's more towards that end. But he's now at the point where his audience expects that. Like, but again, there's probably some performance to it because, you know, there's a whole like, hey Jamie, get a picture of a chimpanzee type thing. It's like he's probably playing into that meme to some extent, and he probably wouldn't naturally do it as much as he does because he knows it's funny. But I do think he's more towards that end of completely unscripted. It probably is a bit more naturalistic. But then I think he puts out like 3 or 4 hour podcasts sometimes. Most of us mere mortals cannot get away with that.
I've gotten up to about 3 hours, and that it really takes it out of you. Like, Jesus, it's exhausting. But I mean, I don't know, if a conversation's good, you just gotta roll with it. You know what I mean? You gotta but see it through, but also at all times keep that structure. Like, I'm always thinking about that, even though, because I remember I got some criticism earlier this year, and naturally, I don't know, whenever I get podcast criticism, it never comes in a nice way. It always comes like, you know, no, kill yourself, you suck, that kind of stuff. And but the person basically said, it was just a pure lie, but they were basically like, you know, you talk over your guests, you talk too much, which is horse shit. Like, we had a 2.5 hour conversation in this particular episode they were commenting on, and I barely got a word in, and my guest even said that, like, she said, oh, if anything, I felt like I spoke too much. So this person, whoever's commenting, was just being a douche. But one of the things that really kind of bothered me that they said was that they found like me specifically to be boring, like, you know, the kind of the storytelling, like they didn't want to hear my stories, they didn't want to listen to that. And I was kind of thinking like, well, then why are you listening then?
Yeah. Some people are just, I mean, I have to kind of consciously remember this. Some people are just
Oh,
dickheads.
actually, now I remember the main reason why I brought this up, because so the thing that actually bothered me above all else was not so much that, it was the fact that they said that I wasn't paying attention. That was it. They said, "Oh, you're not paying attention to your guest. You're not listening to your guest." And it's like, do you have any idea what it's like to host a podcast? Like right now, it might look like I'm just having a conversation with our lovely Jacob here, but actually in my head, I'm thinking about several different things. I'm focusing on what I'm saying now. I'm focusing on what Jacob's talking about before. I'm focusing on this piece of paper in front of me that has different questions on it. There's several different fucking things going on in my head. And it's actually that's why every time, it doesn't matter if it's an hour or 3 hours, I'm exhausted afterwards. Because you're doing like all these different things at once. So that pissed me off when that person said that, because that's a lie.
Some people are just trolls. I mean, it really is as simple as that. Like I was going to say, like, because I've never had any negative feedback on any of my podcasts, but that's quite simply because no one listens. So the video essays have had negative comments, and I just see that as proof of greater exposure. Like some people, I think you're perfectly robust. I think you can take it on the chin. I don't think it bothers you. But like these people exist out there, and they're just going to be dickheads because they're trying to get a bit of a rise or whatever.
And it worked.
And well, it does work, and that's the thing, because the same, like the first negative comment I got on one of my video essays was like clearly someone who didn't watch it, didn't take the time to actually listen to what I was saying, and completely got the wrong idea. Like the one about the Dire Straits one, as I mentioned before. Was like,
so how long is the video?
Oh, it's like 22 minutes or something.
22 minutes. And okay, so what was their comment?
So it's the one at the start where I was like, oh, Dire Straits, are they the least cool band ever? Probably. This song is amazing. I love them as a band. Let me tell you why. And in fact, let me tell you why them being boring is a key part to why they're so brilliant. And I say this within the first few minutes, and his comments were just like, this kid, I'm 30, Jesus Christ, this kid hates good music. He probably listens to Ed Sheeran. It's all that kind of comment. It's like, did you actually watch the whole thing, or did you just get annoyed by my first like 3 comments? And that one did annoy me a bit. I was like, at the end of the day, it's just some boomer who hasn't watched it and probably doesn't really get technology properly. But I was like, look, dude, like, I would never do that. I don't think I've ever I've never in my life, I can say that definitively, left a negative comment on a YouTube video. I don't think I've even thumbs down a YouTube video. I don't know.
That's just lame when people do that. I think the only one that I did that to was the YouTube Rewind, because lol.
Right.
But that actually was bad. That deserved to be.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. But like, I just don't do it. I just don't see the point. And I certainly wouldn't do it if I hadn't actually watched the video. So I was like, dude, come on. And he wasn't a troll. I think he was being genuine, but stupid. But some people out there are just trolls, and it's disappointing. It's annoying. But I think in a way it's proof that people at least are watching. And you know, I take the fact that I'm now getting a little tiny sliver of hate as better than previously, when just like no comments. Any publicity is good publicity.
Let's explore those video essays a little bit more. So tell us a little bit more about what you tend to cover regularly, and and what the feedback has been elsewhere. So you mentioned a little bit about it, but what's the general kind of reception that you're receiving?
It's actually generally really good, which I'm really happy with. I think 1 or 2 comments were like, you know, where I was specifically looking for criticism from people, like on a subreddit. It's almost like, you know, your videos are a little bit like low quality, as in like they're not, but like it was a perfectly fair comment, because it's not like highly produced. It's not like, I don't know, ContraPoint, if you've watched her, who's like a left-wing kind of YouTuber. She's great, but it's not that kind of thing. And I was like, you know, that's fair, because I'm trying to just get it done, and I only have certain skills at video editing. But other than that, people seem to be appreciative of like my approach, because it's usually video essays are like 1 song at a time, really. And I'm glad that people, because you know, you start writing this video essay and you're like, am I just talking crap? Like, is this bullshit? Am I just writing bullshit and that's the script and I read it, I'm like, am I just reading bullshit? Does this make sense? And the people watching like, yeah, actually I really liked your approach. And just one or two comments is like, that's great. I'm really glad. Like, I'm clearly doing something right. And even when someone watches 2 minutes of it and goes, you're an idiot and you listen to Ed Sheeran or whatever the stupid comment is, then that doesn't bother me as much because I don't know, the other comments at least outweigh it.
Do you know, I've started doing a similar thing on my TikTok now, where if someone's just deliberately being mean, I pin their comment as the top comment. And like, and I don't know. And sometimes some of my followers will be like, they'll respond to the person and be like, screw you don't know what you're talking about, or it'll just get ignored. I just find it funny. Because I mean, a lot of the time, to be fair, it is just like kids and you got to just ignore it because kids are kids. But a lot of the time it will be like someone who's salty or annoyed, and it's always the same thing, nameless, faceless. It's very rare they actually have their name and picture and everything. And people might ask, well, why does that matter? Well, I'll tell you why. It matters because if you are going to have an opinion and be really controversial and kind of spew hatred as well, I think you should have the guts to at least have your name and picture and, kind of make yourself available to criticism yourself, be able to be reachable for a riposte, because at the end of the day, opinions are always welcome. Like I've said this a million times, I'm very happy for people to give me constructive criticism. Go ahead. I'm more than happy to listen. It's just when people were disrespectful. Now, in more recent times, I've learned not to give it a response just because A, I can't be bothered, just too much energy to embrace hate, and B, there's never anything positive about responding to trolls or hate. It never gets you anywhere because, as you said, like, the purpose is to get a rise out of you. It's not going to benefit you by responding to them. Even if you find something witty, comedic, funny, the trolls already got what they want. They got a response from you. They're probably, funny enough, trolls sometimes are actually your fans. As weird as that sounds, sometimes they get to be a fan of yours and they just want to get a response because the only way to get a response out of you might be to be negative. Like I've seen so many creators, especially on apps like YouTube and TikTok, where they're really successful. They never respond to anyone because they get too many comments. And so, but they do respond to negative criticism. Like there's this dancer that I follow. You might have seen her. She this is really specific. I don't know if you've seen it. There's this
maybe not. I don't know.
Okay, so there's this girl that does like a lot of dancing videos. She's a professional dancer and she worked for a little bit at Tesco and also some donut shop as well. I don't know. Right. And basically she was getting a lot of criticism online, like, oh, I hate seeing this woman on my FYP. Like, look at her smiling. It was just bullshit. But she took it to heart. She's made several videos about it, like responding to it and being like, oh, this is mean, this is unfair. And it really gets to her. And that's, it's a shame. But that's the thing. She needs to get to that point where she doesn't care. It's like, that's the point you need to be at. Like me, I don't give a flying fuck if people say horrible things. Like, why should I care what some random idiot on the internet thinks? I don't give a shit, But that's the point you need to be.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, luckily, I don't know. I've been on like Reddit and things like that for like what year is it now? Like maybe 12 years, 13 years since I was first on Reddit. And
OG.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have my original account. I think my current account is only maybe like a year or two old. But my first one was years ago, and I think that kind of Reddit used to be much more kind of a Wild West than it is now. I mean, I was never like a 4chaner, which was the real Wild West. But like Reddit, used to have some really unsavory things on it. But, I've always been on it. I used to get into like debates or whatever, and people would troll you or whatever. And I think now I'm at the point where it just doesn't really affect me. Like, I think I've developed the calluses that you need, I think. I think I have. I still only have 129 subscribers on YouTube, so it's not as if I get much exposure. But, I think I'm at the point now where, I've been trolled and bickering with people on Reddit or other forums online for such a long time that it feels like it's relatively kind of whatever to me now. It's not a big deal.
I want to speak to one point that you made there, because I can tell you're still in the mindset of caring too much about numbers, which is a mindset that I've been in before. And what I can say to that is, well, obviously trolls always attack that. So one of the first things they'll tend to say is, oh, well, you've only got 100 subscribers, so you should give up now. Your stuff is trash. And it's like, I wonder sometimes when those people make those comments, do they ever, I mean, they obviously don't think, but let's be real, like every single creator that you like started at nothing. Everyone. And everyone went through a process. Like, I really recommend everyone go out of their way to check out PewDiePie's 10-year video. It's a fascinating insight into his career and everything. But he sits and goes through and shows you basically all the different peaks that he hit. So when he first began and he was, working as a hot dog salesman or whatever you call it, a hot dog guy, and doing these videos for fun back in 2010.
Hot dog salesman's,
yeah, I don't know.
Hot dog salesman is an interesting idea, though. Like door-to-door or door-to-door hot dogs. Business.
There's like a sexual element to that as well. Anyway, so moving swiftly on. So yeah, 10-year challenge. And he shows you all the different peaks. And one thing that's really interesting about it is that there are like declines and ups and downs but like more specifically shifts every like kind of 3 years. And then once he gets to a certain degree of notoriety, it's basically up and down every year. But he still has those major shifts, even 5-10 years down the line. And I found the same thing, like with what I do. I mean, obviously I'm still at small numbers, but to give you an example, I'm growing like a lot on TikTok right now. And one thing I've noticed about that is that it's a lot easier to grow than it is on places like Instagram and YouTube. Yeah. And what tends to happen is that if you get big on TikTok, your other platforms eventually do rise as well, but that's more because you're getting established on that one platform. If you're trying to grow on a platform like YouTube or Instagram, it's going to be in phases. It's going to be slow progression. Like my podcast, I've been doing this a year now as well. And it's taken me a year to get like a regular audience, probably of about, I want to say 10 to 15 people listening. I think it's around about that much. But it's split as well, because there's a bunch of people that listen on YouTube and there's a bunch of people that listen on audio platforms, which is something you don't always think about, Yeah. It's different. Like, I mean, I hadn't even considered this, but there's a term for video podcasting, vodcast.
Oh, right.
It's not something you really think about, but like, and I don't listen or watch video podcasts. I always listen if I do listen, and I tend to watch the clips or listen to the clips. And that's another element to it as well. And the funny thing about my podcast, which is different maybe to other people's, is that no one gives a shit about the clips, but everyone listens to the full episodes, which blows my mind, because I thought as soon as I started putting clips out, it's going to blow up. It's going to get people talking, and it never works out. And bringing it back to the original point about numbers and stuff, I think that it's true that audiences and the common person cares about numbers. So like when people were looking at, your YouTube channel or my podcast or whatever, they go, it's only got 100 subscribers. Probably isn't worth my time then. But every now and again, you get that one person who's like, they're talking about something I like. Let's just check it out. And then they become a fan because they like what you're doing. And those people are valuable. And this is my little bit of advice to you, is focus on whatever it is. You've got like 5 or 10 people that are always watching every single, because those are the people that matter. And that expands. Like right now, I've got a core audience of people that listen to me and have followed me from TikTok to Instagram. Because I got banned from TikTok lives recently. Long story. But anyway, I got banned. Yeah, long story. But anyway,
okay.
The interesting thing is they migrated from TikTok and followed me to Instagram. They listened to my podcast. They're a core audience. I love all you guys, by the way. And they always listen and consume everything that I'm doing. Those are fans. That's something that I've built up, and that's what matters. Not if there's because that's the thing. Even if your videos blow up and you get like 1,000, 10,000 views or 10,000 followers, that whole audience, there's only a small proportion of those people that are actually legitimately engaged in what you do, are fans of you specifically or your brand, and want to see more of you. And that's why I think it's important, just as a final thing to this, that you focus on producing the best quality content that you can do, and never focus on the numbers. Always just focus on what you're doing and that you enjoy it and you love it, because the numbers, they're useful for just glancing at. Sometimes I look at mine and go, oh, that's interesting, it's more female than male and they're mostly in America, but
I don't think I've ever
ultimately
looked at that. I've never looked at
you
that
should.
level of detail. No, I didn't know you could actually, because I'm still relatively. I don't. Yeah. Yeah, I don't look too much at the numbers. I do. I mean, I do think. Yeah, I do like to track it. No, I probably do look too much. I'm going to be honest. I'll be honest.
Everyone does it.
No, I don't.
Dude, I'm not. I'm
Yeah, I
not
don't
saying
look at the
this.
details. I didn't realize I could look at the detail. I'm going to do that now. But I definitely, you put a new video and you're like, let's see if any of these viewers have subscribed. None have subscribed. How dare they?
I don't want to
But yeah, I'm going to
sound
check
all
out.
high and mighty either, because I was
No, I don't think you do at
legitimately
all. Yeah, yeah,
about a year ago, a year and a half ago, I was legitimately checking my stats on YouTube
yeah,
every single day. Why is it not going
yeah,
up? Well, like,
yeah,
oh, it's dropped. Oh no, like even
yes, yeah,
today, like I lost a couple of subscribers the other day on YouTube, and it kind of like bothered me for like a second. I was like, ugh. And then I thought, oh, it doesn't fucking matter. Who cares? Who
yes, yeah,
cares?
yeah.
There's a core audience. That's what
Hmm.
matters. It doesn't matter if, like, and because my friend, shout out to Childish Jacko, he always says to me, if someone stops following you or stops listening, it's like, well, they were never listening in the first place. Then
Hmm.
if they unfollow you, like they're not
Very
interested.
wise.
That's
Yeah,
one less problem you have to worry about.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah.
What's the biggest life lesson that you've learned so far
In my entire life.
in your entire
Oh,
life?
oh my God. Jesus Christ.
I'm
Probably
punishing
right. So
you.
this feels almost meta. How would I phrase it? I guess it is. I don't know. I don't want to sound too wanky, but
No,
maybe
no,
I'll
be
address it.
honest, man. I've
Like
asked every
life,
one of my
life,
guests this.
life is a lesson, right? There is no single lesson. If you're gonna learn any lesson, you going, God damn it, you gotta fuck things up so much, right? Oh my God. Every day you're going to be presented with like evidence of your previous stupidity. Like it's just true. Every day I'm like, God damn it, did I really think that? God, what an idiot. Did I really? Oh, that's embarrassing. Even the things like you thought and you never shared or something, you're just like, God, I'm so like ignorant. And I don't say that in like a way to put myself down. I'm not being like overly depressive or whatever. I'm just saying like it's kind of once you get comfortable with that, things get so much better. I'm just constantly now like I don't know, when I first got my first job out of uni, or even when I was at uni, you don't know something, and it's what your teachers always tell you. I remember my teacher saying like, "Oh, just ask a question. There's no stupid question." But when you're at uni or first job, you don't want to come across as an idiot. But now, if I don't know if someone's saying something to me and I don't understand it, I'm like, "Dude, I have no idea. Sorry, I don't
Mm.
get it." um, and it's just life is just a constant lesson. Just like embrace it. Like it's true for everyone. And if you see someone for whom it doesn't seem like they're going through the same thing, that's probably because they're just really good at accepting that it's a lesson. Like there are some people out there who are really fucking smart, really good at what they do, but that's because they managed to take that lesson on board really early. They accepted, like, look, I'm gonna suck at this for a while. So I teach banjo and stuff like that. I teach a few music instruments as well as doing my YouTube stuff, and some of my students have that lesson like internalized and they really get it really quickly, like quicker than I did. And I'm teaching them. I've been playing for ages now. But some people really get it straight away. It's like, look, tell me when I'm screwing up, tell me what's wrong, and they really have that attitude of just accepting that they suck. Because when you first start playing an instrument, you suck. Do you know what I mean? It's just a simple fact. Like last year, during lockdown, my girlfriend and I got some rollerblades. I've never roller skated or ice skated, anything like that. I fell over immediately.
Yep.
But you know what? I sucked. I still suck a bit, but it doesn't bother me whatsoever. It's just like, yeah, this is what you have to do. You have to push through it a bit. And heck, maybe there are things in life that I took a bit longer to get than the average person, and there's some things I got quicker. And maybe, some people are just slower at everything, but that's fine. Like, life's just a lesson. You're gonna suck, and just get used to sucking, and just kind of enjoy it.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for sharing. And as a final question, do you have any upcoming projects or some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Final thoughts. I guess I have a few upcoming things generally. I have more video essays coming out. The next one is, well, I don't know how much detail I can go to, but it's about repetition legitimizes. This is a thing that a famous YouTuber called Adam Neely, who's brilliant, talks about. It's the idea that, by repeating something in music, or I guess any art, kind of makes it like legitimate as a piece of art. And I kind of explore that subject a bit more deeply. And I'm kind of halfway through editing that. That'll be out soon. I've got some original music coming out. I tend to write like folksy, proggy stuff, like a few ambient type things as well. But yeah, I mean, if people could check out my channel, which is Big Yellow Praxis, by the way. It's not Jacob Waller. I didn't name it simply. Big Yellow Praxis is a pun based on the Joni Mitchell song Big Yellow Taxi. I'm a big fan of Joni Mitchell. The pun doesn't actually make any sense, but you got to roll with something. And final thoughts, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any final thoughts. That's my final thought.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you very much to everyone listening to the Christian Reeve Podcast. And until next time, be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.